You take a look at the people that worked for Hillary Clinton. I mean, look at the crimes that Clinton did.
So let me get this straight. While Cohen and Manafort are facing serious prison sentences, everyone in Hillary Clinton's orbit is getting off scot-free.
It is really selective prosecution because there are people like this in Hillary's orbit.
It's President Trump and his defenders making the case that it is really Hillary Clinton's people who should be prosecuted. It continues. It's crazy. Rudy Giuliani yesterday said, quote, "Let's go DOJ, wake up. There's the indictment. Clinton's not above the law." But as Erick Erickson wrote, Erick Erickson, a conservative, of course, unlike so many people who are Trumpists these days, quote, "You can say, but Hillary, all you want. But the reality is Donald Trump would have been indicted over this Cohen stuff if he were not president of the United States." With us now, let's bring in a member of the Foreign Relations Committee and also Judiciary Committees, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator, I'm not going to waste time talking about the but Hillary questions. I want to talk about Brett Kavanaugh. There's some Democrats that have been saying, I'm not going to even talk to Brett Kavanaugh because he's an illegitimate nominee, because the man who put him up for the Supreme Court is under investigation. Is that really any sort of standard to run this process by?
Oh, well, Joe, I don't think we should be moving ahead with the confirmation hearings until we've gotten access to all the information about Judge Kavanaugh. He played a critical role in the Bush administration for a number of years.
Right. That's different than what I'm saying, though. That's legitimate. If you want to say, how am I supposed to make a decision if you're going to selectively give me documents? I need to see everything regarding Clinton impeachment. I need to see everything that he did for the Bush administration. That's one thing. But it's another thing to say, I'm not going to even talk to him because Donald Trump is under investigation, which has been the argument made by a couple of Democrats over the past several days. Is that legitimate?
Well, Joe, one of the main things I focused on with Judge Kavanaugh yesterday was the very sharp concerns raised by Paul Manafort's conviction on 8 felony counts and Michael Cohen's pleading to 8 felony counts, and the questions that raises about Judge Kavanaugh's record, his printed record, his spoken record on presidential accountability. I do think these two things connect, because Judge Kavanaugh has one of the strongest records of any circuit court judge in publicly saying that he questions whether or not we can hold the president accountable through things like a special counsel investigation. So I spent time yesterday pressing him on what he has said and written in the past, questioning the validity of U.S. v. Nixon, a landmark case in which the Supreme Court unanimously compelled President Nixon to give up evidence in response to a criminal subpoena. Judge Kavanaugh, as you know, worked for Judge Starr on the Starr investigation into the Clinton administration. And after that, made a number of public statements and wrote in different law journal articles things that really gave me pause. There's other reasons why folks might have concerns about Judge Kavanaugh, his views on access to health care, his views on whether or not pre-existing conditions will be protected, his views on affirmative action. But I really focused on presidential accountability, and that's the way in which, Joe, I do think these two issues connect.
Well, and they certainly connect that way. And again, it's important for our viewers to understand that the senator is correct. Brett Kavanaugh made many of these statements about presidential authority that concern me, concern a lot of Americans, but they were made before Donald Trump was president. So, I mean, he believes it has nothing to do with Donald Trump, but still causes real concerns. But again, I'll just ask it to you simply. Shouldn't Democrats, all Democrats, sit down and talk to Brett Kavanaugh if they want to be more fair than how Republicans were to Merrick Garland?
Yes, I think a key part of doing our job as members of the Judiciary Committee is to go ahead and interview the nominee and go ahead and bring the strongest arguments we can to help the American people see what concerns we have about Judge Kavanaugh. It doesn't mean we aren't angry and upset about the timing and the process, about the way that Judge Merrick Garland was mistreated. But frankly, the hearings are going to begin on September 4th. And I concluded that if I'm going to be ready to do my job, I needed to sit down with Judge Kavanaugh yesterday, no matter how much I might object to the idea of our moving forward at this time without all the documents we should have.
Senator, it's Jonathan Lemire. Earlier in the show, we noted that a number of Republican senators yesterday for the first time sort of suggested that it would be okay if President Trump removed his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. You have spoken out in the past about what a concern that would be to you. So let me ask you this. How troubled are you by yesterday's statements? And are you talking to Republican colleagues, urging them not to do this? What sort of consequences could we see here?
I am. And as you know well, I've worked hard with Senator Tillis, Senator Graham, Senator Booker, the four of us, to move forward a piece of legislation that would protect Special Counsel Mueller and his investigation from interference by the president. I'm grateful for the partnership that those senators have shown in making sure that this special counsel and future special counsels are more strongly protected from presidential interference. I am concerned about the statements made by a number of my colleagues yesterday that suggests they'd be okay with Attorney General Sessions being replaced. I think Eugene Robinson, earlier in your show, made the point correctly. Part of what's going on here is saying to the president, look, we can deal with this after the election. The reality is it'd be very hard for the Trump administration to confirm someone who so closely shares their agenda, which I strongly oppose, on a range of issues like voting rights, like immigration. Jeff Sessions, as Attorney General, is blocking criminal justice, bipartisan criminal justice reform. He has an agenda on a range of things that puts him at the far right end of the Republican caucus. And I think the president is ill-advised to think that by getting rid of Jeff Sessions, he would improve his legal prospects in the next year or so.
Senator Philip Bump from the Washington Post. I'm curious, based on your conversation with Kavanaugh yesterday, were there a situation in which he is appointed to the court and then there is a subpoena issued by the Mueller investigators to the president? What's your sense of where Kavanaugh would fall on that decision, should it go to the Supreme Court, which I think we all assume it would?
Well, that's exactly what I'm most concerned about. He was very forthcoming. He spoke to the issue fairly directly, and he tried to put his comments about a key case, Morrison v. Olson, and U.S. v. Nixon. He tried to put them in context and say, oh, that was a different time. It was a different place. I said it in this way. I said it meaning this. I'm going to spend the weekend and the coming week reading into his decisions. One of the things that troubled me most is the ways in which Judge Kavanaugh has repeatedly cited a Scalia dissent, even this year, when the D.C. Circuit on which he serves has renewed their citation of Morrison as good law. And Kavanaugh continues to oppose that and resist that in a way that would strengthen his idea of the unitary executive, meaning that the president can't be held fully accountable and the president might be able to fire a special counsel or avoid having to respond to a subpoena. I know I'm getting somewhat technical on the legal issues. At the end of the day, what matters here is the president above the law and able to evade accountability? I'm concerned by a lot of Judge Kavanaugh's record in this area.
There certainly is a lot of writing out there, a lot of things he said that causes concerns for a lot of people, whether they're liberal, moderate, or conservative. Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.